Okay, welcome back to Ask Uncle Lee. The Ask Uncle Lee slot. It is Wednesday after all. Okay, as always, if you have any questions regarding magic, witchcraft, the occult, anything, all the stuff we talk about on this channel, then just drop your questions into the comment section of one of the Ask Uncle Lee videos, and I will be sure to add it to the list. Okay, but let's get going. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Okay then, so let's go to the first question. Just shift myself over, wrong way. I'll go over this way. There we go. Oh, I can spin around. Okay, first question is from Nix6 Eclipse. This was in reference to one of the previous videos. Gave a timestamp, so I did go and check specifically what I was talking about. Can you do a video about this triangle in more detail? Explain, please. Thank you. Okay, so it is actually kind of simple, but what we, I think within the circles that a lot of people watching this specific channel would be involved in, when we talk about the Triangle of Art, it's usually in reference to what we find in things like the Ars Goetia. And this is the triangle which is laid outside the circle and is where the operator within the Solomonic grimoires, within the Solomonic workings, would then call the spirit into and would make sure they're bound and trapped within that triangle. They can't get out, they can't get to the operator within the protected circle, all of that stuff. So basically, what it speaks of is calling the spirit into this triangle. Now, one of the people you might want to go research is Carol Polk Runyon. He started the Order of Astarte, if I got my names right. He created some videos and did some demonstrations of this actual working, and also wrote a very good book. Now, one of the things that he started using, he discovered, was that when they're talking about the triangle in the Ars Goetia specifically, when they're talking about the triangle, they're kind of represented as being flat on the floor, okay, like lying flat with the scrying mirror in the middle of the triangle. He actually decided to raise it because he was reading the instructions, and it actually does mention raised. I can't remember the exact wording, but basically it gets raised a particular distance off the floor, and it's angled. And it's angled so that the scryer, the person who is scrying into the scrying mirror, the obsidian mirror, would then be able to see their own reflection in that mirror. And as they're scrying, as the operator's summoning the spirit into the triangle, into the scrying device itself, the scryer then starts the face changes, and they start to see the spirit, and they can then communicate with the spirit, right? So we have this aspect where you might want to just have a look at where you actually place the triangle, and at what position, what angle, the height, and all of that stuff. So it differs there. But when we're actually talking about the triangle, it's a place of manifestation. It's a place where we are a tool, where we actually pull in the energies, and we allow that energy to focus and become concentrated. That's really the purpose behind the Triangle of Art. And the Triangle of Art doesn't start with the grimoires. You find it in many other traditions. You create a triangle with whatever method. I mean, it doesn't even need to have the angelic names or Michael around the actual circle with tetragrammaton, etc., or any kind of names. It can just be a triangle of twigs that has been specifically laid for a specific purpose, which is this purpose of manifestation. And it's very useful with scrying, because what you're doing is you are pulling in the energies, you're focusing and concentrating those energies into a point, into a specific spot. And if you've got your scrying device in the middle of the triangle, that the energies then get concentrated into that, and it enhances the scrying experience. Why the triangle? Because of the angles. So one school of thought, at least, is that the angles of the triangle, especially an equilateral triangle, I got it out eventually. The angles create some kind of tension, and with an equilateral triangle, you've got the equal angles on all three corners, and therefore you have an equal concentration, focus, tension on all three corners. Okay, so what happens is it's the angle, the acute angle, and it creates this tension. So it pulls in the energy at 3 points. That creates a tension, and then through that tension, it actually causes it to sort of focus into the center of the triangle itself. Okay, that's why Triangle of Art, or called Triangle of Manifestation. The number 3 is often considered to be the number of manifestation. So, when we're talking about manifestation, we can interpret that in various different ways. So you can do a spell work to manifest something within your life, whether that's a physical thing, an emotional thing, a spiritual thing, whatever it is, it becomes manifest in your life. You can manifest visions through scrying devices. We can talk about theophany, where you actually call the spirit in. This is manifesting in a physical form. Theophany is really just is the creation, or not the creation of, but yeah, the manifestation of a spirit into physical form. Okay, and it's very rare. Don't think this happens every day. If anybody does say that every time they do a working that the spirits manifest physically for them every single time, that's bullshit. It doesn't happen that way. It is very, very rare that it actually does happen. But basically, it is calling the spirit into a space and focusing the energies. I suppose we could say, it's kind of thin if it's spread around a large space. So what we're doing is we're calling it and focusing it into one particular spot, and then because it's concentrated and focused, it can then take on physical form. All right, so that's theophany, at least. But again, it comes back to this whole thing of we're using a shape which has angles, which creates tension. The energy that's called in becomes tense. Tense. I'm rambling. You get tension. The tension creates a concentration. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So that's really the triangle, and you can experiment with this in many ways. As I said, people watching this channel probably only know it from the Goetia, and therefore it is a triangle you place outside the circle. You focus the energy of the spirit within the triangle to manifest within the scrying device. And then you the operator and the scryer, or both, you work within the circle. Okay, so it's separating you. But however, what you could do is you can experiment. These are experiments I'm going through at the moment. I've got lots more work to do on it. But you can experiment with yourself inside the triangle, or as a point of the triangle, which I found quite effective, actually. Or both, really. Scrying specifically, what you can do, you can take your scrying device as being 1 point, and then I place 2 pillar candle. Well, they're candlesticks. They're tall candlesticks that I've got, with pillar candles on top. I place them at the other 2 points, which are just behind and to the right and left of me. So that with those 2 candles and the scrying device, that creates an equilateral triangle. I then sit in the center of that. So what's happening is the triangle space is creating tension. It's focusing all in the center, which is then focused on me. And then I scry into the device. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Another way would be for you to act as the third point. So you have your 2 candles. You then are the third point of the triangle, and you put the scrying device in the middle and try it that way. I am actually specifically experimenting with that in terms of scrying and communication with a spirit. So what you then end up with is you have a circle. On 3 points of that circle, you create a triangle. So on 2 points, you have your candles. On the third point, you have yourself. In the middle of that, which would then be in the middle of the circle, more or less, is the scrying device. Then what happens is you take that triangle, you invert it outside the circle, and on the opposite point to where you are, is then you call the spirit 2. So you have a rhombus, or a rhombus, diamond shape. You've got the spirit on one point and you on the opposite point, and then the candles creating a line between you, and then the scrying device there. So it's you have to do it to actually see it, I suppose. But it's an interesting method. I am experimenting with it at the moment. It's very effective and having some good results with it anyway. So yes, there's many ways we can have a look at doing the triangle or operating with the triangle, and it's not just confined to this one thing, the Goetia itself. And the Solomonic way of working with it is, again, it comes back to the trapping, the binding, the threatening aspect. Making sure that the spirit can't get out of the triangle once it's in there, so that you have control of it. That's a very different way to work than we do within things like demonology. In that case, you are calling the spirit to the triangle in order to focus the energy so that it becomes it's sort of in one spot, so it becomes easier to communicate with. Alright, so that is the triangle. Okay, let me go on to next question, which is this one, and I'm going to have to go to my larger screen because it's too small there. Ane 3394. Can a person be affected, possessed by entities while doing guided mindfulness meditations? I'm going to say no. I will say nothing's impossible, so don't outright consider it to not be possible. But I'm going to say no in regards to that, because when you're doing meditation, let's start with possession first of all. Possession by an entity, if it's one of the spirits that I work with or other people work with that watch this channel, a daemon, a divine intelligence, a higher frequency being, then the only reason you would become possessed is if you allow it, if you ask the spirit to come and possess you. Okay, and there's many reasons you would want to do that. A spirit of that type would not possess you without your permission. Okay, if it's a lower vibrational entity being, like an astral parasite, an imposter spirit, an incubus, a succubus, and such entities, yes, they may come along, and if you do not have a strong will, they could possibly possess you. It's kind of unlikely. It's usually an invitation. No matter what type of spirit it is, it's usually an invitation. And it can happen that it's not an invitation and they take possession of you because they're arseholes. Those are the astral parasite, lower entity vibrational spirits. So that's the reason, or the only way you can really become possessed in the first place. But during mindful meditation, or any kind of meditation, what you're usually doing is you are actually elevating your own vibrational frequency. And that would mean that you are, again, pulling yourself out of that lower vibrational state. Okay, so you're doing the meditation, you're doing the work, you're bringing yourself into a higher frequency. And then the lower frequency astral parasites are down here. They can't do anything to you. They can't get up here to actually affect you in any way. So that's why I would say no. That isn't possible to that specific question. And I'm going to leave that one there because, it's really quite simple. No, not really. Okay, so let's go on to next question. And the third and final question for today. Let me go back over here. This is from Key33333. I think I've got all the threes. Question for the next video. What's with the demons and the elements? How do I know which demon is connected to water or air? And why are some demons associated with a certain element? Alright, this is very much tied into ceremonial magic formats. Within ceremonial magic, we do focus a lot on the elements themselves, and we kind of assign correspondences to various things, whether it's herbs, animals, stones, whatever. I mean, if you have a look through Liber 777 by Crowley, that's just tables and tables and tables of various correspondences that relate to the tree of life and the paths within the tree, the actual spheres and the paths themselves. And it's just lists and lists of correspondences, relating the paths or the sephira with various Egyptian gods, Greek gods, Roman gods, etc., and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so we have all these lists of correspondences. So when it comes to the elements themselves, the elements have a particular energy about them. They have a particular frequency. They have a particular, we can talk about the humours and things like that, if you want to go into that. But basically, I've got an itchy head and I can't scratch it through the hat. Basically, if you think of the elements, so if we think of air, it's very much associated with the mental aspects, the head, knowledge, intelligence, communication, speech and things like that. If we then go to fire, it's very much passion, spirituality, the spirit itself, death and rebirth, renewal, all of those things. Okay. Then we go to water. Water's about healing, it's about cleansing, it's connected very much with sexuality, emotions, all of that stuff. And then we go to earth, it's solid, it's the rock, the stone, it's like holding your ground, standing firm. It's the physical aspects. So we have all of these things that are related to the elements themselves. Then if we have a look at a spirit, Philarius, for example, is very fiery in nature. Aim is very fiery in nature. It's that kind of attitude that they have, how they come across. And this doesn't mean that just because one person feels like a spirit is associated with an element, doesn't mean that you may have a different experience with that particular spirit and therefore want to associate them with a different element. And this is why, coming back into demonology and specifically Connolly's work, one thing she does mention is, yes, within the tradition that she was taught and raised in, I'm not really sure I can say raised in, taught in, they have the specific format where they have Lucifer, Philarius, Leviathan, and Belial, and then Satan within those, forming the elemental kings. But she also mentions that it doesn't mean that's a fixed system. You personally can change that. You can assign different spirits to it. And if we have a look at those specific elemental kings, we can then associate them with the names that Levi gave the elemental kings themselves, which is Peralda, Jem, Nixa, and Gob. Okay, so we've got those elemental kings. We can then have a look at watchtowers. We can have a look at loads and loads of different aspects and things which form these elemental kings and these elemental aspects. It does become a personal thing. Obviously, you can start off with what other people have assigned as correspondences to these spirits, but it really is about their nature, about how they come across. Leviathan is a water serpent, a water beast, a sea beast, so obviously usually gets associated with water. And when you interact with Leviathan, very much that calming type of personality, which is so well associated with water. If we have a look at Belial or Samael or something like that, when we start getting around to earth, if we are considering it from very much from the circle or the compass perspective, we can associate that particular direction within the compass with earth, mountains, passage into the underworld, into the world of the ancestors. So, you know, we're coming round, we've been past water. Obviously, this depends on where you actually place the elements within your own circle, and if you do at all. But as you come round, you go past the west, which is now coming into the evening time. It's where you've gone through middle age, and you're an old person, and you are now moving into or across the river Styx, across the river, the waters to the ancestral realm, into the castle. So you're coming around, and now all of a sudden you are becoming the ancestor, or going into the ancestral realm. So, you know, we can place Samael as the angel of death within this aspect. And therefore, because you're associating that particular position on your compass with that aspect, you may place Earth in that area. I do myself, usually. And it's because I move into the mountains and go down underground into the the ancestral realm. This is where also we can have a look at placing like gods like the forge gods, Azazel, for instance. Although I usually place Azazel in the fire position because of that the forge itself, forming the thing, whatever Azazel is forming on the actual anvil. So I think you kind of get what I'm trying to get at here, is that a spirit and a people, even you can place people in particular elements. A fiery person is usually somebody who's always going and quite often quite abrasive, angry all the time. A watery person is usually quite an emotional person, can be a very sexual person. An airy person is somebody who's always in the head, always thinking, always overthinking as well. Whereas a person who is very grounded might be an earth person. So, you can place people in these elements, not just spirits. So it's all about how they come across, their attitude, their personality, all of those things. And that's really what that's about. But as I said, just because one person places a spirit within a particular element doesn't mean you have to. If you have a different experience with that spirit, place it in an element which is more appropriate for you. That's it. Okay, so that's it for today's questions. Let me just make sure I push myself in the right direction. There we go. And I'll see you next week. As always, as I said at the beginning, if you've got any questions or you want a different perspective or viewpoint on something, just drop it in the questions and I'll add it to the list. Or drop it in the comments. I'll add it to the list. Okay. Have a good one and see you next week. Cheers for now. Bye bye.